Thanks for coming to hang out today. If we don't already know one another, I'm Rachel. I'm the founder of Seeds, which is a crypto mutual aid project, which has helped people in need in 30 countries and counting. And I also used to be a pro stock trader who started buying Bitcoin in 2013 when it was like $90 a coin. So I made it my mission to talk about cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency trading to sustain Seeds so that 100% of the gifts that come through our ecosystem can go to help people in need. And also because I can't handle it that so many crypto bros have been the ones who've gotten rich in the cryptocurrency sector when there are so many nice people doing good work who are struggling to find the resources they need. So if that's you, please pay attention, especially to this message today, because we're in this sort of really interesting, unprecedented window of time and window of opportunity. And I'll talk more about why that is and how you can benefit. Specifically, we'll go into this, but an Ether ETF was approved in the United States on May 23rd. And we'll talk more about this, but previously a Bitcoin ETF was also approved in the US, and it then drove prices up so much that Bitcoin broke all-time highs 4 times in a short span of time earlier this year. So we can infer that there's a likelihood that Ether may do the same thing once trading starts, but we're not quite sure exactly when that's going to be. It looks like trade in the Ether ETF is late June. And it's a different thing than what went down with the Bitcoin ETF because there was more preparation and anticipation that that would be approved. People were surprised that the Ether ETF was approved. So in the case of the Bitcoin ETF, people were ready to complete the filings and do whatever is necessary to get trade live so that the day after approval, trade in the Bitcoin ETF started. But people weren't ready for that as far as like the Ether ETF was concerned. So we're waiting to see when trade is actually going to launch. And so we have a little bit more time to prepare. So that said, let me show you a few slides. And then again, we're going to talk about basics, like something you can do today to get ready for this. And then also a more advanced strategy that could prove, in my view, to be very beneficial, especially once this starts. Okay, so we'll jump into this real quick. Seeds. Um, yeah, so if we don't know one another, again, if you've ever seen the HBO show Silicon Valley, which was about a startup in Silicon Valley, this was a shot of the main character, Richard, who's the founder of this tech company, competing in something called TechCrunch Disrupt Battlefield in San Francisco. And that's actually a real thing. And this is me competing in that on behalf of Seeds. So I'm sharing this just to show that, like, we went through the whatever quote unquote fancy tech milestones and stuff, and it just left me even more disenchanted about big tech, and especially about the fact that capitalism powers big tech through the investment of venture capitalists who discriminate all the fucking time. It's insane. It's just such an inefficient system, and yet it has such an enormous influence on all of us because, like, the fact that you're watching this right now, like, you're using technology to view me speaking about this, and so am I. Big tech has powered those inventions and the progress and the evolution of those tools. And its foundation is this late stage capitalistic structure, which is venture capital, and it's really problematic. And so Seeds is working to get us out of that. Prior to that, I was a career profitable stock trader, and I quit because I started to wake up to the fact that the entire system was designed to bake this discrimination in. And it showed in stupid, weird ways. Like, you would think that if you're making more money than other people at your firm, that you would be rewarded, especially when it comes to something that's all about profits like trading. But I was paid a lower base salary than the guys who started when I did, despite having like a better educational background and an actual proven track record as a profitable trader at one particular job. Later on, when we got bonuses that were performance based, my bonus was bigger than all the guys I started with. But it just made me realize like what the fuck? Like, this system actually doesn't make sense. And what I've been told to believe all my life about, like, get good grades, go to a good college, whatever, and then you'll get a good job and like you'll be recognized and rewarded for your efforts and for your achievement. And it really isn't true, particularly if you're not a white straight male. I mean, the venture capital world, as I've talked about, and I'll show a slide about this later too, in VC, 98.1% of tech investment goes to men. And how is that how does that even make sense, especially when there's so much data out there showing that female founded companies actually perform better. So the system is a joke. It's like not real, and it's made up by people who came up with and published these ideas. I mean, if we're talking about like The Wealth of Nations and Adam Smith, that was published in 1776, and the bedrock of those ideas still influences us today. And it's time for us to outgrow it. And we now have the technology to be able to do that because of the advent of blockchain. And that's what Seeds is using to try and help us get out of this. So in terms of like my crypto trading background, I started buying Bitcoin in 2013 when it was about $90 a coin. And it really was this interesting thing where I consciously thought that the universe or whatever was trying to tell me to pay attention to it. Because I remember that at least 3 people from very different areas of my life who did not know one another were talking to me about Bitcoin. And I distinctly remember having that conscious thought, like, something is trying to tell me to pay attention to Bitcoin. I better do it. And what ended up happening is that this site called Silk Road, which was like the eBay for everything illicit, was shut down by the feds in the United States. And people had used Bitcoin to pay for illegal things on this website. So the feds also seized all of the Bitcoin that Silk Road was holding. And that made the price drop. And the former stock trader in me realized, like, this technology is really interesting. I know that the technology itself, quote unquote, isn't evil. It was just used for like nefarious purposes in this case, but it has, like any tool, it has a wide range of applications. It depends on what it's used for. And I saw that because the price had dropped and because I understood that the fundamentals were still there, that it seemed like it was a really good opportunity to buy. So these were some of the receipts from purchases I made in October of 2013 when I was trying to buy up as much as I could afford. And like I said, it was like around $90 a coin or so at that time. By January, so what is that, 3 months later, it was trading at about $1,100 a coin. So it went up very quickly. And that was the first, essentially the first market cycle within the cryptocurrency world, the first Bitcoin halving cycle. And I have other videos on this channel that you can check out to like learn more about what that even is and what it means if you're interested. I was so excited, y'all. Like when I discovered and started to understand what cryptocurrency was, I don't think I like consciously understood this immediately, but over time and with reflection, I came to see that like, oh, this actually could be used. This technology could be used to rebuild what is failing us in the legacy economic system, right? And that led me to trade cryptocurrency and then to found Seeds, our crypto mutual aid project. And Seeds, like it would not be possible to do this without the decentralized technology that allows us to get capital to people in places in the world. Like I saw Mayam's in the chat today. I'm glad you're back again. Mayam's in South Sudan. He received a gift from Seeds in, I think it was December of 2016. And then purely through his own initiative, because he's like this extraordinary individual, he got a business up and running with the gift he received from Seeds. And then he taught people in his local community how to use Seeds so that we could send more funding to them. And we can do it even though folks in South Sudan, particularly women, as I understand, may not have traditional bank accounts because the government doesn't necessarily issue them IDs and they therefore can't open bank accounts. So it's like we can get around these other forms of discrimination using this technology. It's not perfect, but it's taking further steps along the sort of progressive evolution that I think we need to be going through at this stage in the growth of humanity. So let's talk again about the specifics of this moment in time, this time frame, by checking out both. We'll look at the chart for Bitcoin so we can see like when the Bitcoin ETF launched earlier this year in the United States and look at the market impact of that so that we can get a sense of what may happen within the world of the cryptocurrency ether. So to start, I wanted to share this so you can see that. So we have clarity on the dates, the approval for the Bitcoin spot ETF, and you don't need to know like specifically what that is, or you don't have to have a deep understanding of these sort of types of traditional financial products to benefit from cryptocurrency because of this. It basically just means that a stock form, ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund, a stock form of Bitcoin, which rested on the value of Bitcoin, was approved in the United States on January 10th of this year, right? 2024. And that was a long time coming because the SEC in the United States, the Securities and Exchange Commission, has, I think, done a really terrible job of, first of all, understanding what cryptocurrency even is. They've been terrible about articulating rules surrounding cryptocurrency. They've done a lot of, I always forget this phrase. What is it? Litigating through enforcement, legislating through enforcement, where the rules won't be clear. And then all of a sudden you'll hear about this huge lawsuit where they're going after some cryptocurrency project. And the project will say that, they thought they were doing their best to adhere to the rules, but the rules weren't clear. And we could debate like whether how transparent and how honest those projects are necessarily being. But in my view, it's been very clear that the SEC has handled things kind of horribly. So as I understand, they were trying to get this passed. I mean, it literally says here 10 years after the first spot Bitcoin ETF application was filed, it was finally approved. So people were trying to do this for 10 years before the SEC approved it because they couldn't they couldn't get away from it anymore. Bitcoin futures had been approved, I believe, in late 2023, if I'm not mistaken. And that set this precedent that showed that like futures are products that allow us to trade what people think something will be worth in the future, which just shows you how esoteric and made up traditional financial products are. If we're trying to make an argument that like cryptocurrency isn't real, there's some really not real stuff in the world of cryptocurrency trading that is so crazy. Like I personally, when I was a pro trader, I used to trade euro dollar futures. That was one of the many products that I traded. So I was literally trading what people thought the relationship between the euro and the dollar would be in 3, 6, and 9 months in the future. And like, what the hell? And then I would look for inefficiencies in terms of like, did the 3 and 6 month value add up to the 9 month value? And then I'd take advantage if I saw that there were inefficiencies there. Finance is made up, money is not real. And these products were created largely by old people who who don't necessarily have an understanding of where and I'm not alone in thinking that the energies are heading in a certain way, and we need an economic ecosystem that aligns with that and supports it. And that's what Seeds is trying to be. All right, so Bitcoin ETF was approved on January 10th, as we see here. Here we can see that trade then started the following day, January 11th, as I was touching on earlier at the beginning of this talk, right? So this is important to take note of because, a difference now is that the Ether ETF, which again was approved on, let me show it to you. I should have pulled this up before. It was approved on May 23rd. But again, because like people were ready for it with Bitcoin. So once the approval came through, trade was ready to commence the following day. That's not the case with the Ether ETF because people did not think it was going to get approved. People did not have any faith that the SEC was actually going to let this go, right? So we now have this window of time that we're in right now in which these exchanges are getting an Ether ETF ready. And then we can infer that whenever that launch happens, and there's different speculation, people don't know for sure. But I have seen, let me see if I can find that article. I've seen a couple varying opinions. One is that there's a legit possibility that the Ether ETF could start trading as soon as late June. So like in a couple weeks. I've seen another opinion, expert opinion, quote unquote, that it could start before July 4th. And the SEC has said that it's dependent on when these filings are completed. So the onus is on the exchanges themselves. And of course, they're incentivized to do that because they're going to make a bunch of money off of this. So that makes it look like the SEC itself is not like arbitrarily trying to delay the process because they're bad at their jobs. Like it's sometimes looked like they were doing that, certainly in the past. So yeah, it just looks like it's going to happen, and it could be as soon as a couple weeks in the future. And we'll see if that sentiment changes. So given that, I wanted us to take a look at the impact of that in Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency. So this is not the Bitcoin stock, this is Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency. So we can see what happened after the Bitcoin ETF launch in January of this year, right? So if we go back here, I'm using Gemini Active Trader. I'm going to zoom out. This graph is effed up. Okay. So this is the day graph. So it's showing us data on each day. So it's sort of a drawn out time interval to allow us to see a longer term graph. And this is the Bitcoin USD price. So the price of Bitcoin in US dollars. So if we go back here, so we know, per the news articles we just looked at, trade was approved on January 10th. So this is January 10th. So we can see that it kind of spiked. Let's zoom in slightly. Yeah. Okay, so on the 10th here, it got up to this price point at about what, 48,730 or so. And we can see this graph shows us that the price kind of jumped up heading into that approval. But then we had this sell-off afterward. And that happens when there's this sort of trading adage that you might have heard before, this idea of buying the rumor and selling the news. So we can assume that people thought there was this likelihood that it might actually get approved. So they started buying the rumor that it would get approved. And once the news came out that it was actually approved, they sold. So whenever the price drops like this, it's people selling, it's people taking quote unquote profits. And so that's what seems to have happened here. And it drove the price back down to, so we see this low, this relative low, around what, 39,470 or so. That was hit like not quite 2 weeks later, around January 23rd. And then we started to see the price track up. And again, the approval was on the 10th. So trade actually started happening in the Bitcoin ETF in the United States on January 11th, the following day. So trade was already going down. So we had the sell off. And then roughly 2 weeks later, it started to go up. And then it started to really go up once we hit late February. And then when we get into this area here, Bitcoin was breaking all-time highs. And Bitcoin is over 15 years old. So, it's like a big deal when it breaks all-time highs. So I believe it broke all-time highs 4 times in this short period of time. The current all-time highs were hit around like March 14th, March 13th. And they were like, it depends on what exchange you were using because slightly different prices were hit. But I mean, according to this, it was about 73,638 or so. Somewhere like that, somewhere within that range. And then the price has been hanging out since then. And it looks like it's kind of consolidating, like it might be waiting to head back up again, in my opinion. So that's what we saw in Bitcoin following the launch of the Bitcoin ETF. It broke all-time highs, right? If we look at Ether, this is the Ether USD graph, again on the day time interval. So if we zoom this out a little bit, it's annoying. I use this graph even though I hate Gemini because I think this particular interface is a little bit easier to read and understand than that of its competitors. But pretty much any centralized exchange that you use is going to look more or less like this. So check this out, y'all. As I mentioned, the Ether ETF was approved on May 23rd, and we looked at that headline, right? So this was another instance of buying the rumor, but they haven't sold the news just yet, which is fascinating, right? Okay, so we can see that it spiked a bunch on May 19th, and then it was May 23rd, 4 days later, that the official approval was announced in the news. And generally, not the news reported on this approval announcement. So people were buying the rumor here on the 19th, because there'd been little bits of information that had come out about the SEC asking applicants to clarify certain things and fine-tune things on their application, which made it look as though oh, this might actually get approved, even though we thought that it looked like there was gonna be long drawn out lawsuits, as the SEC continued to refuse that this product be allowed to exist. So there was this big spike as people bought the rumor, but they haven't quote unquote sold the news yet. And I would say that the difference here, again, is that Bitcoin ETF trade happened the day after the approval, but Ether ETF trade has not started yet because people, again, were not anticipating that this would even get approved. So they just weren't ready. So they're going to be hustling to get ready for this. And we're going to see where this is going to go. I mean, it's just been hanging out at this higher level since then. Right now, it's trading at 36,381, which is sort of a relative low. You can see that it's kind of touched around that level here for a bit since the spike on May 19th. So this makes me think, I mean, I don't see a reason, like when we saw the Bitcoin price head back down, right? Off of this once trade launched. Um, and it was people quote unquote taking profits, like I said, like right in here where the price went back down before it went up to all-time highs. The Ether graph, it looks like it's telling a different story because there isn't sort of this impetus to sell the news, apparently, because if there had been, people would already have taken those profits. They would already have sold this spike and the price would have come back down. Another difference, it's slightly different. It's not a perfect analogy, is that Ether has not yet hit new all-time highs in this cryptocurrency market cycle. It hit about $4,800 a coin, and this graph won't even show it because it only goes back 1 year. But the previous all-time highs that Ether established were around $4,800 a coin. So that's, a good over $1,100 above what it's trading at right now. So, I mean, if Bitcoin tells us anything and the launch of the Bitcoin ETF tells us anything, it makes it look like there's this likelihood that when trade starts, when the Ether ETF begins trading, it's going to want to go back up and test that $4,800 previous all-time high. And maybe it'll be like Bitcoin and end up breaking it multiple times as it heads up. So this is a window of time during which we can prepare, basically, because we know that the approval happened. We're waiting for trade to start. We don't know exactly when trade is going to begin, but it could happen within like 2 weeks, right? Based on what we know right now. So we should get ready. And so I wanted, as I said before, to talk about like a basic way to prepare and then a more advanced trading strategy that you can use to prepare, in my view, as well. Yeah, so let's do that. So I still had a couple more slides to show. And if you have any questions or anything you want to talk about, of course, always feel free to put that in the chat if you're here live. Okay, so if we go back in here, the basic way to prepare. If you're totally new to cryptocurrency, I know this can seem super overwhelming. If you're a femme person, a woman, a person of any gender with a lot of feminine energy, what I've seen a lot is that so many folks like that will have like as much or more knowledge than the average crypto bro, but you'll think that you need to learn more before you can dive in. Please just try to get involved because, like, for real, just getting involved in some way has such a great likelihood of ending up being profitable for you. And I don't want you to miss out because you feel that you need to learn more. I'm sure, like, based on, I mean, my experience, data backs this up too. Like, so much more than a lot of people who are maybe making money in this space, who are not. I'm trying to be nice about crypto bros and I shouldn't do that. There's just so many crypto bros with that energy who are like yelling and whatever and like being on Reddit and being obnoxious, who are making a bunch of money in meme coins and stuff like that. And I want you to be making that money instead because you're already, it should be nice people because you're already doing stuff to make this world a better place. If you have more resourcing, you will be able to make the world even better with more resourcing. So I want you to have resourcing. Okay. All right. So the basic preparation, if this is like a totally new world to you, this could literally be accomplished truly in like, I mean, yeah, like half an hour, depending on how long it takes the centralized exchange to approve. So the first thing you need to do is get what's called a self-custody wallet. Self-custody wallets are one of the most exciting, in my opinion, inventions in the world of cryptocurrency because what we're used to dealing with the banking structure, right, is like we have banks, we have bank accounts. If we're lucky enough to live somewhere in the world where like we're allowed to have bank accounts, which isn't true for so many people, especially so many women around the world, folks that are unbanked. If you're lucky enough to have a traditional bank account, you're giving them your money, your customer deposit, and they're paying you some shitty interest rate. And then they're doing what's called fractional reserve banking, and they're holding custody of your money. And then they're taking it and investing it somewhere else where they make a much higher return on your money while they pay you the shitty interest rate. And that's how banks work, right? So we don't have to, we've outgrown that sort of structure. It had certain benefits in a certain time and place in history, but we no longer have to engage with that. And the introduction of blockchain technology, cryptocurrency technology allows us to transcend it. An important way that we can do that is through the usage of a self-custody wallet, which allows us to keep custody of our funds at all times, even as we invest it and use it to generate more money, essentially. So we don't have to leave it in the custody of a bank. And if you've seen any of the press in like the last 2 years, actually, let's pull something up real quick just to like showcase this. Like, okay, this dude, he was in the news so much. If you're watching the news in the US, you probably have come across this story about this person, Sam Bankman Fried, and the collapse of his centralized crypto exchange, FTX, right? It happened in late 2022. And he was like positioning himself to be this like fancy cryptocurrency person. And he had these like fancy celebrity endorsements. There was like a Larry David Super Bowl commercial about FTX. He got like Giselle and Tom Brady in on this. Apparently, Taylor Swift said no, all this stuff. And then like months later, he's in jail. And I think he was sentenced to 25 years. Um, so this mainstream news about this story really created this sense that like, oh, cryptocurrency is evil. Like the technology is evil. And that coupled with the negative gross crypto grow energy in the sector, like how many people are just disgusted with the idea of cryptocurrency because of that image? So many people, y'all. Let me tell you, so many people. And it's been really frustrating and annoying for Seeds because there are almost no projects, to my knowledge, that are even pretending like they're doing quote unquote good in the world of cryptocurrency. Seeds exist to help people in need and to transcend late stage capitalism. And it just felt like this other instance of like the worst energies in the late stage capitalistic system making things harder for Seeds. So it was the struggle to try and figure out like, should I change the message? Should I even use the word cryptocurrency at all? How do we help people understand that Seeds isn't this? Seeds is a different thing than this. It's just using technology that happens to fall into the same category, sort of, you know? The reason I'm bringing this up though is that this example, this FTX story, it was a failure of centralization. This failure happened for the same reason that banks failed in the Great Depression, fractional reserve banking. And it happens again when you're giving your funds to a centralized entity who has custody of your money. But we don't have to do that when we use self-custody wallets. So please understand, as sort of like the basic rule, that whenever you acquire cryptocurrency, you want to have it in a self-custody wallet that you control as soon as possible. You know it's a self-custody wallet if you have access to the private key slash the mnemonic slash the seed phrase. Different terms are used to describe what that is, excuse me, to access that wallet. So if you realize you've opened up a wallet and some platform tells you that you have cryptocurrency, but they've never provided you with the key or the mnemonic or the seed phrase for that wallet, you do not have custody of those funds. They do. You may hear the phrase like, not your keys, not your crypto. That's what that means. You don't have custody of those funds unless you do this. So it's really, really important to make sure you understand that you need a self custody wallet and then to set that up. The self custody wallet that we tend to recommend the most, somewhat reluctantly because I don't like Coinbase either, is the Coinbase wallet tool. Um, they updated this website. So this is where shit can get more confusing too, because Coinbase.com is a centralized exchange. So again, if you're trading cryptocurrency on that exchange, you'll realize that they haven't actually provided you with a private key for your wallet. However, they do have a self-custody app, which allows you to manage a bunch of different cryptocurrencies. So this is the site for it. They literally just updated this very recently. It didn't look like this the last time I looked at the site. Why are they not linking to it? What? I want to like, I'm going to put this in the chat so you have the link, but I want to make sure that they haven't changed the link. Why is it not updating that way? This is weird. It's like, because they want me to connect my wallet up here. It wants me to connect my Coinbase wallet to Coinbase wallet. What? So maybe they did update the website. Coinbase wallet self-custody. Okay, this is the site. I did know this actually. I did remember that they updated to this. Huh, what were we just looking at? I'll have to look into that off camera, I guess. Because what am I connecting my wallet to here? This is unclear. Connect to wallet, connect to wallet, connect to wallet. Create smart wallet. So maybe this is their new quote unquote smart wallet tool. Huh. All right, I'm gonna look into more about what this is. For our purposes, though, for this sort of basic preparation again, we want this self-custody wallet. Okay, I'm gonna put this link in the chat. I've used these guys for years. Like I said, I don't like Coinbase. I think that they don't really care about the people using their platform. And I've felt that a lot of different times over the years. I mean, you'll hear horror stories about their customer complaints. But again, a way to avoid that is by not leaving your cryptocurrency on the centralized exchange. They made the self custody tool, but they don't have control of our cryptocurrency when we're using the self custody tool. So I have had an okay experience using it over the years, and I believe that their product quality is solid. It is good. I'm not afraid that they're going to get hacked or something in the way that I would be like with a Binance product, for example, because Binance does not have the same quality. And that's been proven in multiple instances, including when Binance was hacked in 2019. So there's that. I also still use the MetaMask Chrome plugin. Um, so there are other wallets out there for sure. MetaMask was created by like the marketing arm of the Ethereum team. And you can see here, so I already have the Chrome plugin, so it's just here. So I can open a wallet here within my browser. And I find that that can be a little just like more user friendly whenever I'm making trades on decentralized platforms than it is to connect my Coinbase wallet or something like that. So I would say that these continue to be the go-tos. We've recommended them now for years, but that's because a different alternative hasn't presented itself and like demonstratively been better. Uniswap has their own self-custody wallet now, but even in looking at that, I mean, user experience is not their forte. And some of the elements of that wallet, I think just they're not better than what these wallets, these Coinbase wallet and MetaMask are offering. So yeah, these are the wallets I can say from my personal experience have worked fine for me now for many years. MetaMask for many years. I've been using MetaMask since 2017, and it's been okay. So there's that. As ever, you got to make sure that you're storing your private key slash mnemonic slash seed phrase somewhere safe, probably offline. You don't have to buy a hardware wallet. I have never owned a hardware wallet. I think it's kind of a bit of a racket because the quote unquote added security isn't necessarily proven out. People have had problems with hardware wallets as well. So like I wouldn't tell you to go drop 180 bucks or whatever on a Ledger or a Trezor hardware wallet. Instead, in my perspective, in my experience, it's been better to put those funds into buying cryptocurrency. So, I mean, as ever, take what resonates, do what feels right for you. But I want to make sure you understand that because I find that a lot of beginners think that they need to go off and buy a hardware wallet. You totally don't need to. You don't have to do that. You just need to make sure that your key is protected and safe. And you could literally even do that. They used to call it quote unquote cold storage. It literally meant like writing down your key or printing it out or something and putting it in like a safe, and then keeping your wallet offline. So at the end of the day, you just need to protect it so that nobody is accessing that key or that mnemonic. And I should share that sort of the more recent uh, scam, because as the sector evolves, the scams evolve as well. What we've seen in the last couple of years have been increasing phishing attacks, where people will have a fake website and they'll trick users to going to that website thinking it's a legit website. They'll try to get you to connect your self custody wallet to that website. And when you do that, you don't realize it, but you're actually giving them permission through the code to drain your wallet. So you always want to be certain you're going to the website that you intend to go to. If you see airdrops in your wallet, but they look kind of sketchy, never ever click on links included with those airdrops because it's almost certainly a phishing scam. So you just got to be careful, right? Make sure you know where you're going. Make sure you're never connecting your wallet somewhere that you're not 100% certain is a safe place to connect it. So, looking at that, okay, let's go back to the slides real quick. The second thing you should do after you have a self custody wallet, and it really just takes a few minutes to set up a self custody wallet, it's just like an app. Coinbase Wallet is an app. Um, MetaMask has a Chrome browser. They also have an app, web browser plugin, I should say, but they also have an app as well, a mobile app. The second thing you want to make sure to do is to open an account on a centralized exchange. I've just spent a lot of time kind of shitting on centralized exchanges, and it is deserved. But the fact of the matter is that at this point in history, we still live in a reality in which we're almost certainly going to need to, at some point, buy cryptocurrency with what's called fiat currency, aka our local currency. So if you live in the States like I do, it's the US dollar. If you live in South Sudan, it's the South Sudanese pound. The GBP, the AUD, whatever currency you're using, because of regulatory reasons, you're going to need to use a centralized exchange in order to buy cryptocurrency with your local currency. I have never come across a centralized exchange that I didn't kind of hate. A lot of it is just the design of it and the nature of what has drawn people to cryptocurrency, and then to make a conventional product like a centralized exchange, like there just is not a good one. I mean, I've looked for years, y'all. I have not found one that I think is good in terms of user experience and like in terms of actually showing that they give a fuck about their customers. So when I'm talking about, like I showed you Gemini earlier, I'm using Gemini purely because I would say, and this is so arguable, but it's like quote unquote the least worst centralized exchange. I'm literally in the process of like litigation against them now because of an error on their site years ago now that has cost me what's now worth nearly $200,000. And I've been fighting them for years, and it's just been so draining. So like I'm sharing that to illustrate how bad it really is. If I'm still telling you that this is the least worst exchange, and I'm personally going through that experience, excuse me. So again, the moral of the story is like we can set up an account on these exchanges, and it's just good to do this before things are super crazy. Because if you're waiting and then like suddenly you hear like, oh, cryptocurrency is going up a ton, and only then, that's the moment that you try to set up an account on a centralized exchange, it things may be delayed because of an influx of new users, whatever. It may take a while because they're approving your identity. It's centralized, it's regulated, it's all about like identity verification, and there's merit in that to an extent. We need to reduce fraud. But the point is that they can delay it. I've heard of Gemini and Coinbase, which is another centralized exchange that's widely used around the world now. These sites can take sometimes up to a week to approve somebody's new account. So it's just a good idea to get that set up sooner rather than later. In a lot of cases now, I mean, they're trying to speed up the process. You can get verified in like 30 minutes. You're going to have to use like a government issued ID. So again, that's why these exchanges are discriminatory, because if you don't have a government issued ID, how are you going to use this exchange? You can't, right? That's why decentralized exchanges like Uniswap can fill an important gap. But if you have the privilege of living in a place where you have access to these types of centralized exchanges, it's a good idea to get set up on them now. I actually do have like a promo code or something for Gemini. I should have had that ready, I guess. Will they let me? It's like a double-sided bonus. Let's see if they even do that here. That I could like share the link with you. It looks like they're hiding it now. Maybe they've been giving it out too much and they don't want to give funds to people anymore. Um, I'm sorry I didn't have that prepared. I didn't think about it in advance. Um, hmm. I believe there's a link to it on our website, though, on seedsgives.com, if you want to go there and check it out. But yeah, you can just sign up. I'm so sorry. I'm thinking like how I could find it quickly. But I don't think I have a way to find it quickly. Do I? I'll look really quick to see if I can't give you a link. It would get you like $15 in free cryptocurrency. 1 second. I think I know where to find it. Nope, they got rid of it. Did they for real get rid of it? It was just live like a month ago. Man, that tells you that cryptocurrency is going up though too. If they've like gotten rid of uh their like what are those called? Double-sided rewards to try and get people to sign up for the site. Yeah, dude, it looks like it's gone. Let me try one more thing real quick. Sorry about this, y'all. Yeah, here's the link. Yeah, looks like that's dead. So I can't give you this like double-sided referral bonus or whatever. So sorry about that, but you can sign up at gemini.com. Oh, I can't, like I'm shilling for this shitty site, but like I said, there aren't better options. Kraken is not better, Coinbase is not better, Binance is definitely not better. Those are sort of the big known exchanges. Crypto.com has terrible user experience. Like I was trying to use them the other day to set up purchases and it was just insane to see how bad it was. It was so bad. It was really terrible, but um anyway, let me give you this link. Okay, that's Gemini's site. Okay, so we're talking now about the last basic thing we want to do to get ready. So it can be as simple as something that's referred to as DCA, which stands for dollar cost averaging, or fiat cost averaging, which just means setting up an automated purchase in your local currency on a centralized exchange. And you could do that in Ether so that you're starting to buy it up in this period of time before the Ether ETF launches. Because, as we've talked about, it looks like there's this likelihood that the price could really go up as you're getting that Ether. So that's something that centralized exchanges offer that decentralized exchanges don't yet. It allows you to just say like, yeah, I have $50 a month or $1,000 a month, whatever it is. They have different time intervals too. You can set up like weekly or bi-weekly DCA in certain cases so that you're funneling some capital into Ether. You could do it in a lump sum as well if you have some savings or something and you're interested in using that to take advantage of this. But I found that DCA can be a really easy way for people to start getting into the sector and, just getting set up so that you're actually getting involved so that you're taking advantage of these moments. Let's take a look again quickly at Gemini just to show you an example of what DCA can look like on these sites. So if we're back over here really quickly and we go to account, we can see that we're an active trader, but we can click on simple instead. And there's going to be a very similar version of this regardless of the centralized exchange that you're using. So once we're here, you can see over here, there's a simple interface to make a trade, and you could set different frequencies, daily, weekly, twice a month, monthly. You can choose the amount, 50 bucks, whatever, and you can choose the cryptocurrency, and you can choose what to pay with, which can include debit cards or different banking accounts. The exchange rate here can be terrible. So if you're able to be a little bit more active and actually make these trades yourself on an active trader platform, that's going to be cheaper for you. The difference, an important difference between these quote unquote simple interfaces like this one here and the active trader settings on various sites is that active trader will typically charge you like 1/10 of the cost in fees. So that's something to be aware of. But if you really just want to set it and forget it and you're not so concerned about this, the thing is, there is this likelihood that it will go up so much in value that it's not going to make an enormous difference. But the exchange fee here is going to be much worse than it's going to be on an active trader platform. Um, but you can set this up so that it's automatic here. So this would be, again, you could do these things. You can set up your self-custody wallet. You can set up an account on a centralized exchange, and you can set up DCA pretty quickly. Assuming they approve you quickly, it really could be done in like half an hour. And I just highly encourage folks to do that so that you're starting to get things set up so that you're putting dipping your toes in the water in advance of this important event when the Ether ETF launches. All right, so there's that. Now let's talk about a little bit more of an advanced strategy to prepare for this. I'm not going to go too deeply into this because it would take more than the 20 minutes or so within which I'd like to wrap up this session. But if you're somewhat familiar with how this works, something that I think is going to be a good idea is going to be to use the Ether that you're acquiring to become what's called a liquidity provider in an Ether pool with a lot of trade volume on a decentralized exchange like Uniswap. So let's take a look at what that means. If we go back up here, this is Uniswap's protocol, uniswap.org. This is a site that you're going to want to bookmark because there are a lot of fake sites pretending to be Uniswap that are, again, trying to run that phishing scam to drain your wallet. So you really want to be careful with this because this is the most popular and sort of the pioneering cryptocurrency exchange for decentralized trade. So there have been a lot of people that have tried to use it to like make fake versions of it to scam users. So we want to be careful to avoid that. Okay, so when we're on this platform, something we can see is a variety of different pools and the trade volume in those pools. I'm in the pools tab here within their analytics section. So I'm trying to think about how I can explain this clearly for folks that may be more toward the beginner level. In a nutshell, what's amazing, in my opinion, about Uniswap is that they figured out a way to avoid forcing people to use centralized exchanges that are under centralized control. Uniswap is decentralized, as I said. And in order to do that, they had to sort of figure out a way for people to democratically come together to put up the liquidity, so the cryptocurrency, to allow traders to execute trades without friction. There needs to be enough of a cryptocurrency on a platform in order for it to be traded, right? There has to be enough to satisfy the demand. And so, in order to figure out a way to do this democratically, Uniswap came up with this way in which everybody could you can create your own marketplace now if you want on Uniswap. You just need to have a pair of cryptocurrencies. And in the earliest days, every cryptocurrency pairing was with Ether. So then Ether act as the intermediary. So if there were two cryptocurrency pools and one was WBTC Ether and one was USDC Ether, if I wanted to trade WBTC for USDC, I could do that on Uniswap's platform, and it would execute the trade using Ether as the intermediary. So it would swap my WBTC for Ether, and then that Ether for USDC, and then I would get my money. And all of this is open source technology, which has been vetted by many software engineers. Anyone can view the code and look at it to see if they think it's safe. It's been proven over years now. And yeah, it's just, I've only been excited, I've said this before, about like 5 inventions in the world of cryptocurrency in 15 years or whatever. And this was one of them. Uniswap was definitely one of them. So to take advantage of the Ether ETF launch and the likelihood that it's going to drive up Ether's prices, something you can do once you've acquired more Ether is you can become a liquidity provider in one of these pools. Because the other awesome thing about this is that when we do that, when we're adding liquidity, when we're adding our cryptocurrency to this market, not only are we retaining custody because we do it with our self-custody wallets, but at the same time, we can earn fees. Traders pay us the fees instead of paying it to like the Winklevoss twins, who are the billionaire founders of Gemini, for example, right? So you can take the funds that you're just holding in your wallet and put it to work and continue earning more in fees. And on top of that you can often get things like other bonuses, and other airdrops in some cases as well, which often come as a surprise. We're probably not going to be seeing airdrops and bonuses in big pools like these, but looking at this, like this is a ranking of the pools, okay? It's ranking them by TVL, which is total value locked, which means that people just like you and me have added $340.66 million worth of WBTC, which is a form of Bitcoin, and Ether to this pool. So when people are trading in this pool, they're either trading Bitcoin or Ether, okay? And you can see here, this is the fee tier. So those who choose to be liquidity providers are earning 0.3% in fees with every trade. So something we can do when we have that Ether is we could end up adding liquidity to a pool like this. We should really look at trade volume though, as I said, it's more important. And then there's more complexity here, and I don't want to make this too complex, but like, okay, if we're looking at volume in 24 hours and volume in 7 days, if we click on this, we can see the highest volume. So there are different cryptocurrencies, different pairings that have greater volume in the last 24 hours. If we look at the 7-day volume, USDC Ether, that's the pool with an insane amount of volume in the last 7 days. $1.2 billion traded on this platform alone in the last 7 days. However, with USDC Ether, we can see it's a lower fee tier. It's 0.05%. So we're making 1/6 the amount in fees that we would be if we were adding liquidity to a 0.3% fee tier like WBTC Ether. What I'm trying to say is that when we have this Ether, we may as well put it to work as liquidity providers in one of these pools. And if we do it in a pool that includes Ether and has high trade volume, as Ether goes up in value, assuming it does go up in value off of the Ether ETF launch, y'all, like, people are going to want to be buying Ether, right? So these pools are going to get even more active. They're going to be buying up more Ether. You're going to be making more in trading fees. So this is something I'm personally going to do. I think it's a smart idea. I'm going to think a little bit more about the strategy and the range. And yeah, just real quickly, I'll show you like how to look at doing that because we have a little bit more time. Um, so if you do want to add liquidity on Uniswap, you would go to pool. You're adding to the liquidity pool. You would connect your wallet up here on the right, and then you would create a new position, and you would choose the pool that you want. So say I said Ether WBTC. I would choose the fee tier here, and then you can do something. You can go down here to select the price range within which you want to add your liquidity. So this is for sure more complex, but it means you can leverage your cryptocurrency more effectively. So that, for instance, if you're staking, $1,000 worth of cryptocurrency in a narrow range, you can leverage that so that you're making as much as you would have had you staked $10,000 worth of cryptocurrency in a wider range. But the risk there is that if the price of trade, the price at which this pair is trading goes outside of the range you've established, you are no longer earning anything in fees on that cryptocurrency. You would have to take off your liquidity and then add it back in a different price range. So we can get around that by clicking on full range up here. So then it's 0 to infinity. It just means that you're earning less in fees over time. So like maybe we want to make it a little tighter, like bring these bars in. This is annoying, 0.05. Yo, well, okay. Yeah, maybe we want to bring these bars in so that they're like surrounding where the majority of this pink shitty graph here represents where the majority of the liquidity has been, within what range the majority of the liquidity has been added. So we could bring this in so that it's tighter and it's like just sort of surrounding where the bulk of that liquidity is if we want to. And that might allow us to leverage our capital a little bit more effectively, but still give us a likelihood that we're going to stay in range. But then if things go crazy and people are buying a lot of Ether and it's really outperforming Bitcoin, it could go out of range pretty quickly. So this is a little bit more of an advanced approach. But if you just want to get it in there, you can set it at full range. You're not going to make as much as you would if you had a carefully calibrated range and the price stayed within that range in a narrower range. But at full range, you don't have to worry about it ever going out of range, and therefore you're always going to be earning fees on your liquidity. So then you would add some Bitcoin and some Ether here. It will tell you precisely what amounts to add. That may mean you have to swap some of your Ether to buy the WBTC, but you can do that on Uniswap's platform as well. And then you just add it to the pool, and then you can check periodically to see how it's performing. I think I could show you quickly. Yeah, I think I could. I have a staking example. Let me show you, just to give you a sense of how this can go. See if I can pull this in real quick. Just to show you like how this can perform in a quick amount of time. All right, so if we go back here, that should be appearing for you. Okay, so this was a screenshot that I took of capital that I had added to specifically the Ether WBTC pool, as you can see at the top left. And I'd added total liquidity of about $55,000 at the time. You can see that the unclaimed fees here were $1432.44. And I remember I made this in fees in like 10 days, in like a week and a half. So that's a pretty amazing return in a short period of time. It's not always going to be that. It depends on a variety of factors, as we talked about, including the range that you choose to set and trade volume. Yeah, it's just like it can be really sick. It can be a sick return. So if you have cryptocurrency chilling in your wallet, you might as well be doing this, adding liquidity to continue making money off of it on a decentralized platform like Uniswap. All right, y'all. So we'll wrap things up. There one more thing I want to say. I mentioned this earlier, but because the legacy economic system is so messed up and it's so much harder for so many of us, it's harder for women, it's harder for people of color, it's harder for everybody who isn't privileged and coming into generational wealth. I teach a class called How to Build Abundance in Cryptocurrency to help people learn how to use these tools, and it sustains seeds so that seeds can make sure that 100% of the value that goes to people in need, 100% of value coming through our ecosystem can go to folks who need it. And I've had to do this because, you have to come up with more resourceful ways to keep things going whenever the system is not supporting you, right? And that's why seeds exist, to try and support more people. So I teach this course live. We'd automated it in the past, and I just recently decided I think we should offer it's on-demand version. So this is going to be, you would access the course that I'm recently teaching, that I'm teaching right now actually, and then you would have access to every future course as well, for free. And then on top of that, because seeds are included when you sign up, you will receive a course that is effectively free. It's effectively free. So here's the link. Put this in the chat as well. I'm sharing this now and starting to step on pushing this now. What? Like deciding to talk about this more so now, again, because we are in this framework of time in which the Ether ETF is not launched yet. So getting people the knowledge that they need at this time is probably going to be even more beneficial because of that. So check it out if you're interested. And again, it sustains seeds. That's why we do this. So you can look at that. You'll have access to the course. You'll receive the seeds. That makes the course effectively free. As I said, there are payment plans. If you want a payment plan, that's available to you too. There are interest-free options. The first 20 people to register will also receive a one-on-one live trading coaching session with me, if that's appealing to you. So there's that too. You have support in our Discord where you can ask questions, and I'm in there every workday, answering them as you need them answered. And then, like I said, you have access to every future version of the course that we offer, including live versions of the course. I committed in 2021 to teaching it at least once per year live. So that's there. If you're interested but you're not yet ready to sign up, there's also a place here where you can share your email address so you get notified about this course. If you're on the fence though, like again, like people say that this is an adage as well, but like the best time to get involved in cryptocurrency was 15 years ago. Bitcoin launched in January of 2009. The second best time is now. So I really, really want to encourage artists, makers, giving people, anyone with a lot of feminine energy, regardless of your gender, to get involved. The gross energy in the sector is one thing. Seeds is working in a different place. Seeds is working to help people in need. It's a different sort of thing. Please don't let the actions of a handful of bad actors and what ends up being a lot of toxic masculine energy in the sector, please don't let that scare you off, because you can benefit from this in like an ethical way that feels good. And I'll share what I've learned since, 11 years ago when I started buying Bitcoin, and I'll bring in my experience as a pro trader to try and help you out with that as much as I can. You have to do the work, of course. You have to take the action. You have to learn how to actually do the things. But I want to support you as much as I can. And I really want to strongly encourage you to just jump in, like it's it's helped out a lot of people. It's made a lot of people very rich. You should be one of them. Of course, it's not without risk and so forth, but like the rewards have just been crazy. Like if you stay in the sector for kind of any amount of time, it's crazy. And we just had the Bitcoin halving on April 20th, April 19th, depending on where you are in the world. That kicked off a new cryptocurrency market cycle. If you're not aware of this, in the past, we've seen that all-time highs typically were reached 12 to 18 months following a Bitcoin halving. So that would take us to like late 2025-ish. It just makes this point in time even more special and even more important, and an even sort of greater opportunity to get involved. So yeah, please do that. If you're on the fence, please take all of that into account. All right, I'm going to check out the chat really quickly. Disclosure Crypto says, hey mate, could you check Gary Network? I'm not familiar with Gary Network, but yeah, I can take a look real quick. Tall says, thanks Rachel. Thanks Tall, I appreciate you. Okay. Yeah, something I try to say a lot is that I have never met anyone who has an encyclopedic knowledge of everything in the world of cryptocurrency, and it changes very quickly. And I definitely don't have an encyclopedic knowledge. But what I have been able to do effectively over the years is like if I learn about a new project, I can take a look at it and kind of assess it and, you know, come at it with a more informed opinion. I don't know if you're still here or not, Disclosure Crypto, but is this what you mean? Gary.network? If you're still here, let me know if that's what you're thinking about. To be clear to anyone who's just jumping on here, I'm not endorsing Gary Network. I'm asking if this is what Disclosure Crypto means. Is this the site you mean, Disclosure Crypto? Okay. All right, checking this out. All right, this is just my off the cuff opinion, right? Like typically when people ask me to offer opinions, what I like to do is do some research and come at it with a more informed approach and, spend some time doing that. So this disclaimer, this is just first impression. All right, I'm looking at this. The first thought that I have is that it uses the term Web3. The term Web3 was created by and like coined by, as I understand, I believe it was the founder of Polkadot, like last cryptocurrency market cycle, I think. So like 2021. So my first thought is that anytime I see the phrase Web3, I'm just kind of like, oh, this is a newer thing. And I don't often find that people are aware of that. There are people out there, including Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, who have been vocal about this idea that quote unquote Web3 is not actually a decentralized thing. That's a valid criticism because there have been so many investors in the quote unquote Web3 space who are just straight up VC, venture capitalists, who are coming to these projects in the same way that they've approached quote unquote regular startups. And that can be problematic because then these projects are subject to the incentive structure of VC, which is a lot of the reason that big tech is so shitty. That said, probably the fanciest investor in the space is Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z. Let me see if I can find that tweet from Jack. Is this your project, Disclosure Crypto? Is Gary your project? Okay, so this is what Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, tweeted about quote unquote Web3. And this was in December of 2021. So he says, you don't own Web3. The VCs and their LPs, their limited partners, do. LPs invest in VCs and then VCs invest in startups. And again, like I said, 98.1% of that money is going to men. It's mostly white men. There's no like regulation. There's nothing in that sector that allows it, that tries to stop it from discriminating against people in the way that there is with like employment law and whatever, where you can't discriminate against someone based on race or sex or sexual orientation. That does not exist in VC. So it's just perpetuating a lot of these problems. It will never escape their incentives. It's ultimately a centralized entity with a different label. Know what you're getting into. This is totally valid. It's super valid. That said, one of the projects that I showed you here, Uniswap's platform, it took venture capital money from Andreessen Horowitz, which is arguably the fanciest VC firm there is. So I think that's problematic. I still use Uniswap because the tool is open source and there isn't a better option. And they can't like fuck with that, the open sourceness of it. And like the way I worry that this is rationalization, but the way I think about it is like, I know that these fancy VCs are going to do things that will probably make these products make more money. I can be a part of that and take that money and invest it somewhere else. Okay, so that's like a tangent, but yeah, anytime I see this phrase Web3, I'm just kind of like, I already think it's not a project that like has a deep understanding of what, in my opinion, is revolutionary about cryptocurrency, which is the decentralized nature and the way it can be really of the people and of the community. So it's okay, it's world's largest Web3 audio and video streaming platform, live streaming platform. So that's cool. Like it's cool to start seeing more forays, in my opinion, into like social on the blockchain. It's also super hard to do still because the blockchain, which is the immutable ledger underpinning cryptocurrencies, different cryptocurrencies have different blockchains. It can't store a ton of data. So when we're seeing off-chain projects or projects like layer twos, part of the reason for that is because data can then stay off the blockchain and keep it from getting too congested. So something like a social platform, which contains a ton of data, especially at scale, we don't have a way to do that on chain, frankly, as I understand. And like, I'm almost certain that I'm not aware of any single probable exception because it just can't handle it. So like, this is cool. We've seen other attempts at building social on or sort of like adjacent to blockchain in the last, I don't know, like year or so, and they're not really working. Um, this says it has 200 million plus downloads. The largest streaming in crypto, like if they're trying to stream too, like that's like the most data intensive thing you can do. So I'd want to know how this is even working and how they're making that claim. Is it just that they're trying to say that it's about Web3? It says daily on-chain users. Okay. So is this on their own chain? So they're like trying to capitalize on specifically short video apps. So like TikTok. I don't know. Just looking at this, I'm just like, I don't believe that this works. Like, I don't believe that like the data can't be stored. And then on top of this, like the name, I'm like, Gary, like, I don't want to use an app called Gary personally. And I am not trusting that they're going to be better at like attracting users than TikTok, you know? I mean, TikTok had to pivot and stuff itself. Um, oh, okay. Disclosure Crypto says, no, ma'am, it's one of the projects that Solana Ventures invested in. It's a streaming platform, so I invested a lot of good exchanges, a lot of good partnerships they have. Okay, so yeah, just to share again my candid opinion off the cuff, knowing that it's a Solana Ventures project, that also makes me skeptical because I don't think Solana is of great quality. That doesn't mean that you can't potentially make short-term money in it. In a crypto bull run, everything kind of goes up. The tide, what's that phrase? Rising tide raises all boats. But I don't think Solana is that great. Solana came on the scene as quote unquote one of the Ethereum killers. Um, because Bitcoin was introduced back in the day. It's the oldest cryptocurrency. And then the Ether founders, including Vitalik Buterin, were like, yo, it would be cool if we can make it so that it's easy to build on top of the crypto network, but Bitcoin wasn't designed for that. So Ethereum was introduced to make it relatively easy for software engineers to do that. Then Ethereum became successful and its gas fees went up and it got really fucking expensive to use Ethereum, as many of y'all will remember, particularly in the last cycle, 2021-ish. So then all these quote unquote Ethereum killers appeared. Solana was one of them. I don't remember when it launched, but it would have been before 2021, I believe. Excuse me. Because they could offer like a cheaper alternative to Ethereum. But none of the Ethereum killers has killed Ethereum. I still am a big believer that I don't think anything can at this point. It's too far ahead and it's just better. It still has problems. It's still too fucking expensive, but that's why layer twos have appeared. So yeah, if something's built on a Solana and if Solana Ventures put money into it, like I don't think Solana, when I'm talking about quiet, sorry, my dog's protecting us from a guy walking on the street. Be quiet, please. So Solana Ventures is not a good VC. There are like 20 good venture capital firms, 50, 100, not very many in the world. Andreessen Horowitz is the fanciest because they are actually good at what they do. Um, that's another reason it's problematic because that control is so centralized. It's just like a handful of, it's almost all dudes and they have so much power and so much money. So uh, I don't think stuff that Solana Ventures is putting money into looks like it's good quality based on what I know right now. Nothing that I've seen looks great to me. Um, yeah, that's what I would say. Like, I'm looking at this, I'm just like, I don't think this looks that great, frankly. I mean, do whatever you want to do. This is just my opinion. And yeah, it'd be cool if somebody could effectively, it'd be great to have a truly decentralized social network. That will probably happen at some point. This is their backers, investors, and partners. Yeah, none of these I think look good. Kraken Ventures, nah. Investors that believe in our journey. See, this is just straight up misleading. AngelList is like a platform. Unless something has changed, AngelList is just a platform to connect with investors. Did AngelList invest? Maybe they did, but they weren't doing that the last I checked. Seeds has raised money through AngelList in the past. Yeah, I just don't think this looks good. This isn't something that I would think is good quality. This is something that I would think probably won't get a ton of users and then might go away after the bull run ends, unless something changes, unless something improves, or there could be information obviously that I don't know. This is just my quick at a glance assessment. And the other thought I have is that something called Gary with an I, it doesn't, I don't know, that branding doesn't seem like it's right for like Western audiences, is my thought too, for what it's worth. Again, take that with a grain of salt. That's like my 3 minute or whatever thoughts looking at this. I'm super skeptical of this 200 million plus downloads thing too. Like, who's downloading it? I wonder. Anyway, how did you invest in it? Do you mean that you bought the coin? Or are you an actual investor in the project if you're still here? Anyway, on that note, okay, I'm gonna let y'all go. If you want to join the course, please do it. It supports a good cause. It can help you out at this really important time. I'll put the link in the chat again. And y'all, like, it's free. I mean, you get seeds with it, so that makes it free. Um, and that's all. So if it resonates, I hope you'll check out the course. I'm gonna be live on here more often lately to talk about things heading into this launch, the launch of trade in Ether ETFs. So please subscribe if you want to be notified about when that's gonna happen. And I'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I know everybody's really busy and I appreciate you hanging out. And yeah, I'll catch you next time. Looks like Disclosure Crypto didn't reply, so it must be gone. All right, have a wonderful weekend and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye. Okay.